Hello everyone, Lord Master of Sotek here. Hope you're all doing well today. I know it's a little overdue due to I actually made a version of this video, but it turns out there's some things I can't quite talk about yet, and I wanted to be better safe than sorry, and it's a good thing I did, because there are some things I can't quite show off to you guys yet regarding changes to the world in Total War Warhammer, but I can at least make a video showing off what I can. So, as you all know, there are a number of new things being added to the world, both in the Vortex and Mortal Empires campaign. We're going to go ahead and take a look at those today, try and keep it relatively short and to the point, you know, just focus on the new places and what I can talk about. So to start with, let's go over the new regions on the map. So as I'm sure you're probably aware, the new factions have been introduced to the game, being Throt the Unclean up in Nagaroth, where he starts in the new region of Atorok, which is kind of connected to the Ironfrost Glacier. So he doesn't have a direct route to the lands of the Dark Elves, but instead relies on his underground stance, but it does protect him a bit from the Dark Elves, so it's kind of nice. Meanwhile, a little further south, you could find the Sisters of Twilight in the new location known as the Witchwood, which the Witchwood is basically a three-way crossroad that covers from the Obsidian Peaks. There we go. It has a road coming in this way, a road coming in this way, and then it has a road that connects down here to the Ashen Coast, which means that there are some new routes open and available for Morathi and Katep should they be wandering around these mountains. Another new faction that's been introduced is the Broken Chains, which are a greenskin tribe. They're basically the escaped slaves of the Dark Elves, because the Dark Elves, of course, do take slaves from virtually all of the races that live in and around the Warhammer Fantasy universe. So, of course, they did have a lot of greenskins, but looks like many of them have broken free and are now running amok, causing problems. So they'll be kind of your starting enemy when you're playing as the Sisters of Twilight. You've probably seen that on the showcases that Creative Assembly has put out lately. A little further to the south, there is a couple of new forests scattered around the Vortex map. The first of which is the Sacred Pools, which is guarded by the Wardens of the Living Pools, which is a Lizardman faction. They make for a new starting enemy for the forces of Marcus Wolfhard. Meanwhile, over in the Southlands, a new faction has been introduced to take over for Clan Moulder. Clan Moulder used to start in the caverns of Sotek, but now it is Clan Grittis, which Clan Grittis is, of course, a new faction both on Mortal Empires and in the Vortex. We'll cover where they are in Mortal Empires later, but they start down here for now, so they're kind of a new faction that you could work to take over or dominate as Queek Headtaker, or of course smash apart if you're playing as Malice Darkblade or Krokgar. That about does it for new changes to the Vortex campaign. Most of the changes are, of course, built around Nagorond itself. There are a couple of new unique structures that have been added that we'll cover more in depth at a later time, just to be better safe than sorry. Almost all of them are in Nagaroth regarding the Skaven, at least. And then, of course, the Wood Elves have a unique structure in every single one of the forests. One of which, the Gain Vale, has been upgraded to be a full magical forest, a la Athel Loren, that the sisters will be trying to interact with. And then, of course, you have the Sacred Pools, and then the Heart of the Jungle, where Orion's camp is. So I hope you guys are looking forward to exploring all the new things that are to be found across the Vortex map. But let's go and check in on Mortal Empires. Alright, welcome back to Mortal Empires, everyone, where we're going to be taking a look of all the new regions, provinces, and factions that have been added to the battle for the Total War Warhammer world. So the first thing that we're going to start with is that up in the lands of Nagaroth, you can see that what we have on the Vortex has pretty much been reflected here. The Witchwood has been added in the Blackspine Mountains area, or the Obsidian Peaks rather, and you can see it kind of forms it's a little bit of a complicated space, but it basically opens up a pathway leading from the Doomglades up to the Blackspine Mountains. And essentially the Witchwood has basically turned most of this little region into a forest, and the actual settlement itself is tucked away into this little space here where the Sisters of Twilight can be found, the Heralds of Ariel. Meanwhile, a little further north of them, you can see that the Broken Chains Greenskins have made their way into these northern mountains, where they will act as a new enemy for the Dark Elves to deal with, in addition to Katep, but, you know, adding more greenskins to the northern part of the map, which is nice. There wasn't much of a greenskin presence there before. Over in the lands of the far north, you can, of course, see that Hell Pit now has a proper ruler. Clan Molder was, of course, there in Mortal Empires, but now it is ruled over by Throt the Unclean. Meanwhile, this is a rather important new route that's been opened. The Chaos Wastes, instead of forcing you to either go straight to Volksgrad or up further north towards Norska into the Bearsingleads camp, now you can cut south. There's a new road that cuts here through the northern World's Edge Mountains, and it leads you into the northern Darklands. And the northern Darklands is made up of the ruins of Karak Vlag, a fallen dwarf settlement. Then, of course, the infamous Skaven Warren of Seepgore, which is, of course, where the Beast of Seepgore was created, and it's owned by Clan Grittis, and this is where they appear on Mortal Empires. They are a relatively minor faction, but they give you some rather nearby Skaven allies if you're going to be playing as Throt, while also some new potential allies or enemies if you're playing as Azhag or Ungrim Ironfist. Then a little further south of these two minor settlements is the new major settlement, which has a lot of big implications, and it's the Silver Pinnacle, which is the capital of the Lamian Sisterhood, run by one of the only male Lamians who's really well known in Warhammer Fantasy history, Khalid al-Munstahir. And he is, well, I imagine that he's going to hopefully be enjoying his position while he can, because when Neferata inevitably makes her return to this game, it's probably not going to go well for him. As you can see, the flag for the Lamian Sisterhood is actually Neferata's helmet, which does hopefully mean that we're going to be seeing the first of the vampires making her triumphant return to the battlefields of the Warhammer universe in this game. I don't know if she's going to be in Total War Warhammer 2, or if maybe she's going to arrive later in Total War Warhammer 3, but when she does, I think there is little doubt that the Silver Pinnacle will be the starting location for the Queen of Lamia. That does it for the new province of the Northern Darklands, but if you head a little ways south, you'll find the Southern Darklands have also been added. It is a complete ruin. Nobody lives here right now. It's totally empty. And I am playing as a Skaven faction. That way we can see any hiding Skaven factions. You'll note that there is a new pass that is open here just north of Naxxrax's lair. It's what connects the northern World's Edge Mountains to these desolate lands. And the first we have here is the Desolation of Drakenmore, which is the capital. And then a ways further south, it's a very, very open province, is the Deadrock Gap. And Deadrock Gap is where it actually connects to another open pass, and this is, of course, familiar territory, which is the Wolflands, and leads us to Mount Silverspear, owned by Rictus Clan Nest. So this does actually mean that we officially have eastern playable territory open across the entirety of the World's Edge Mountains that's at least playable in the current game. So that does actually add in a couple of nice new zones. It gives those who play as the Warriors of Chaos a interesting new route if they'd like to take it. You know, if you don't want to plow through the nations of men, you can actually instead go fight other forces here in the Darklands and smash your way all the way south until you start fighting Greenskins and Skaven, or you could always enter the mountains a little earlier and start fighting the dwarves and greenskins that you'll find up there. But it should give some really interesting new enemies and allies for some of the already playable factions. I think most notably, Ungrim gained nothing but enemies. Azhag, though, may have gained a couple of new allies, being that, of course, he is a little more favorable towards those with vampiric traits. I think the Lamian Sisterhood could make for a nice early ally for Azhag, and Clan Grittis will probably side more with Throt than anything else. Meanwhile, in the Empire, We do, of course, have the new forest of the Griffin Wood, which I'm sure many of you have seen on people live streaming or showing off videos of playing as the new Wood Elves. That is where a certain angry tree begins her conquest. Meanwhile, further south, there's a forest just tucked up here behind Ockendorf, or between Ockendorf and Karasakarak, which is the Forest of Gloom, which is ruled over by the Creeping Death Goblins, who are a forest goblin-themed tribe. Further south, we still, of course, have the Heart of the Jungle, acting as the main forest in this area. The new forest we talked about in the Vortex campaign, the Sacred Pools, has been added as well to Mortal Empires. It basically sits in a little mountainous crux area here between Itza and Chakwa, and it does have an open road, a couple of narrow paths you can see that lead in and out of it. It has one road that leads to Chakwa, one road that leads to Itza, and another road that leads to Slonhapek. So there's actually quite a few lizardmen guarding the Emerald Pools from any potential invaders. You're going to have to figure out what you're going to do about them if you're playing as the Wood Elves and decide to go in there. The Gaean Vale, of course, has been fully transitioned into being a magical forest type environment. That way it interacts nicely with the Wood Elves. And we've already looked at Nagaroth. So that pretty much does it for all of the new territory. Like I said, there are a couple of other things I would like to speak about on a future video. So you can kind of consider this video part 1, and I'll even call it that in the title. But there are other things that I'm excited to show you guys once I am able to. So you'll just kind of have to sit tight. In any event, I hope this video will help you plan out future conquests and be excited for the good handful of new factions we're getting. Of course, most of the new content is revolving around all of the forests that have been added across the world and cleaning up of the factions that own them. But I'm really, really eager and excited to really get to talk about everything once the full embargoes drop. So that's going to be it for me on this video. I hope you all are ready and eager to get your hands on the DLC when it goes live on December 3rd. And until then, be sure to keep checking into this channel so you can catch live streams and videos so that you'll know everything and anything you could possibly want to or need to know about all of the new content. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.